Hey, this is Peter. Welcome to the Arise podcast. This is the episode with my first guest. So I want to welcome Marcel Brown, also known as King Smooth. This is somebody that I look up to a lot, not just as an entrepreneur, but as a mentor, as a creator, as a mental health enthusiast. And I actually also consider him a great friend. So I want to thank you, Marcel, for coming on as the first time guest of the Arise podcast.
I am honored and I am grateful. Thank you for the kind words, but it's truly an honor to be the first guest on your podcast. I understand the mission to touch other people, to provide that motivation, that inspiration, and it's a pleasure to be able to do so alongside you, Peter.
I appreciate that. And, before we start, I got to give you a round of applause,
I'm grateful.
All right, awesome. So just to dive in, I feel like we had a whole nother podcast before the podcast and we talked about so many great things, but just want to dive into a little bit about who's Marcel Brown. Like, I feel that you have like so many layers to you and stuff like that. We're both from Queens, New York, so
Brooklyn and Queens.
Represent. Yeah. So yeah, if you could just tell me a little bit about like where you're from, what you do, and for the world watching.
I appreciate you, Peter. It's an honor. First and foremost, I am a man of God. Through him, all things are possible. And I'm grateful to be able to possess the layers that he provided me with. I am a father. I am a husband. I am a philanthropist. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a musician. But through it all, I have one purpose, and that's to motivate, educate, and inspire. I feel like God puts us on this earth to fulfill a purpose. We all have a certain light to us. We all have gifts that we possess. And if we don't use those gifts, they are taken away from us. So it's a blessing to wake up every day to use my gifts to inspire and help to heal others, No,
amen. God is a big part of my journey as well. We were having that conversation, and also just with the vibes that we felt, before the podcast, praying, just setting the right tone. So I one thing that I've noticed about you, Marcel, and that's the reason why I wanted you on the podcast, is I've noticed that when people go day to day, they kind of go through the motions and stuff like that. But one thing I've noticed about you is that you live in purpose. From a professional perspective, I'll see you and you just seem to go the extra mile, to care a little bit more. You just seem to, you just look like a man on a mission. And I know that you have the nonprofit organization. I know that you have brands that you've started, just personal, but also with your family as well. You were showing me earlier that you had your daughter has her own clothing line, which is amazing. So not only are you successful, but you're setting up the success for your kids as well, and just giving them the right mindset. So tell me a little bit about those things you have going on, as far as the brand with your daughter, the marketing brand that you have, and also the nonprofit. So whichever one you want to start with.
I appreciate you, man. And I feel like I come from very humble beginnings. And since I was 5 years old, I wanted to be the person in my family who changed the complexion of my family. I was the first male out of 70 first cousins to graduate high school, the first male to go to college, and I always was on a mission to just do better, to be better, to become better. And by doing so, because I came from humble beginnings, I always chased money, Don't get me wrong, chasing money had led me to buy nice things, provide my family with nice things, but I still felt unfulfilled. And if you don't make a move, God is going to move for you, And in 2019, I went through a time in which I got sick. I was managing a 325 unit condominium in New York City, not feeling fulfilled, but loving the money that I was making. And that kept me stagnant until I got sick. I went through a sickness for about 6 months. They didn't really know what was going on, and I'll dive into that later. But more importantly, it gave me purpose. I thought to myself that if I was to leave this earth tomorrow, what am I leaving behind? Not only for my children, but for the people on this earth. Did I fulfill my mission? Did I touch as many people's lives that I could have touched And that changed everything for me, Peter, you know, and that's what made me start my first business alongside my wife. It's called Different Color Browns. And our kids, thank you, God, they're like geniusly intelligent. And a lot of people ask us, like, hey, how do your kids become so smart? And we tell them sometimes, we'll crack a joke, is like we teach them things before the teacher teaches it. But my wife actually was instrumental in educating them at home, starting with like flashcards. And from that moment, we created our own educational supplies, flashcards, curriculum during COVID time. And it hit off well. You know, people saw how successful my children were in school, and they brought into the brand, and it felt good, you know. And just by walking in purpose, everything else began to happen, you know. From my experience of working in the music industry since I was 8 years old, I always had an eye for marketing. So not only was I marketing my family's brands, I began to market my friends' brands, you know, different small business owners, and it just continued to add to the layers. And I'm like, man, this feels good. I feel like true success and happiness comes from being true to yourself. And I made a vow to myself, like, Marcel, whatever you do, just make sure you stay true. Mm-hmm. Make sure you can provide that motivation. Whether you can, make sure you can provide that inspiration. And I stayed true to that. And it just led me to be successful and grow in so many different areas, from mental health, from marketing, from education. And I just think that in everything that I do, if I stick to my purpose, it's going to bring the money. It's going to bring the success. It's going to bring the impact. It's going to bring the good health, as long as it's aligned with the purpose that you set forth and the purpose that God has for us, you know. So, and I think that's what makes me who I am.
Yeah, and with the podcast, I mean, a big thing for me, you know, I've had my mental health struggles. So this podcast actually stemmed from that, you know, because I felt like I had to rise over all these things that were holding me back, the anxiety, the depression. And with me going through my healing journey, and then also with the help of God, I realized that these problems were not as big as they were. Like, I arose over them, and these problems diminished. Right? So mental health is a huge thing. It's actually one of the staples of this podcast. So can you tell me a little bit about your journey with mental health? Like, I mean, I know me personally, like, I went through anxiety, depression, you know, just like racing negative thoughts. So I've been through a little bit of mix of more on the anxiety side, but I would like to know, like, what's your experience? And I'm sure a lot of people listening here have experienced some type of mental health struggle. So you could just open up a little bit about that, about what it was specifically.
Of course. Before I go into my journey, I just want to tell you that I'm proud of you. You turned problem into purpose. You know what I mean? You rose above it. You didn't allow it to sink, allow you to sink, you know. Most time in life, and especially as men, we don't have the resources, we don't have the push, we don't have the guidance to overcome some things that is hard to talk about. And not only have you overcame it, Peter, but you're using your journey to give forth to the people. And that's why we're here today. So I'm proud of you. That's number one. And
thank you.
Of course.
Don't make me cry at my first episode.
Nah, man, I got to give you your flowers and tell you the truth.
I appreciate it.
For sure. He deserves a round of applause. You know what I mean? 100%. Shout out to Peter and overcoming his journey and turning it into a positive. But for me, like I said, I come from very humble beginnings. And I learned throughout my life that our experiences, the traumas that we go through, kind of dictate our thoughts and our actions, you know. And in 2021, I believe, I was going through a rough time. And I was facing a major problem in my life. Had a conversation with my wife, and she told me to, like, hey, go pray about it, you know, think about it, and just know that anything you go through is going to make you who you are destined to become. So I took some time to meditate in the shower, and while doing so, I listened to a song that I had recorded from 2013 or 2014. This was like 7 years later. And as I'm listening to the song, Peter, I realized a lot of the things that I was talking about, I was still going through it, you know, and it didn't make me feel good. You know, it showed me that I had a lot of healing to do. I was raised by a single mom. Shout out to my mom and also my grandparents. And my grandmother passed away in 2018, and then my great-grandmother passed away in 2015, and I never cried, you know. I realized that I was holding in so much pain, not only from their deaths.
Wait, so like out of all the experiences, you didn't like?
Probably like one time.
Probably once.
Like not really did.
Why do you think that was?
Because as men, we're taught to be strong. We're taught not to cry. We're taught that we gotta have that strong exterior. I've gone through a lot, and I just held it all in. I'll just focus on the journey. But then that weight becomes so heavy, and it becomes a point in which you have to release. And I learned through life, when we release is when we receive. And by listening to that song, I realized, like, man, you never released before. So for my 31st birthday, I listened to that song. I shot a music video to it. And as I'm editing the video, I'm crying, Peter, and I'm dropping tears, And I realized that the trauma that I was going through was not only affected me, but it was affecting my loved ones around me as well, and everything I do is for my family. And I said, hey, Marcel, if you don't heal your past, you're going to lose out on your family. You're going to lose out on this great future that you're working on. And that alone was inspiration for me and was the biggest motivator behind my healing journey. I created a brand called Life Don't Lie. And with Life Don't Lie, there's 3 aspects to it, Peter. It's a mental health brand, but I like to say that every person that we meet, every place that we are at, every encounter that we have is all a part of your divine purpose. And if you can heal your past, that's step 1, right? That'll allow you to stay present. And if you stay present, you're going to see all of the signs that God has given you to the 3rd step, elevate your future, And I try to use my life as a living testimony that if you heal your past and stay present, you will elevate. And you are a true testimony of that as well.
I try my best, but no, that's awesome. What's the mental health brand called?
It's called Life Don't Lie.
Life Don't Lie.
Life
Okay.
Don't Lie.
Okay.
It doesn't lie.
And is that like Instagram page that they could follow?
Instagram is Life Don't Lie. I have some merch that's dropping as well. I've started it about 4 years ago.
Okay.
My first 2 merch drops, I sold out completely. And now I'm just trying to expand on it at the same time. I'm working on a musical documentary. I've been documenting my healing journey for the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. I don't know if I said that in the intro, but Marcel, it's kind of like a big deal in the hip hop rap industry. Like, you've been making music for how long now?
Since I was 8 years old.
8 years old.
Yeah, 27 years.
Now you're using that as a form to express all the pain and everything like that. And I feel like that is the type of music that maybe we need more of.
I appreciate you.
Because there's so many, like we call cappers, that are talking about, things that are not really important. I mean, you're talking about things that people struggle with on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. And to use that express that in a musical form, that's beautiful, because you're doing something that you enjoy, that you're passionate about.
Yeah.
But then you're also talking about something important.
Yeah, I'm grateful. I feel like some of the biggest artists, whether it's a Drake or whether it's a J. Cole or maybe even a Lauryn Hill, they make music that's relatable. And when you're able to relate to the people, that's what gives us the chills. That's what brings down the tears. That's what allows us to see that we're not alone, So I feel like God gave me a gift and gave me a way with words. So instead of using my words to look cool, or to chase clout, I want to use my testimony, my truth, to let people know that you are not alone. And if I can make it through my journey, through my obstacles, then you can do the same thing, And that's what I am doing with Life Don't Lie. So it's a musical documentary that's coming out soon. I'll let God dictate the way, but you'll be seeing some things from
we're waiting.
soon.
We're waiting on it.
I appreciate you.
Awesome. And then the nonprofit, is that separate, right? The nonprofit. Yes. Mm-hmm. What's the nonprofit called again?
Thank you. It's called Richard's Way.
Richard's Way.
Yeah.
I want to dive into that. And thank you, by the way, for sharing about the mental health thing.
I appreciate you.
Before we get into Richard's Way, I'm from New York. I'm from Queens, New York. My parents are from the Dominican Republic.
My man.
You're from New York as well.
Fact.
So, Brooklyn, Queens. And there's a lot of pride in the Latin community, especially the Dominican community, where it's like, oh, you don't have to cry. Like, los hombres no lloran. That means in English, men don't cry. Toughen it up. But what I've learned is that pride is not worth it. It's not worth it, and it's not going to help you lift that weight. The only way that weight is going to be off of you is if you release it. Mm-hmm. And you release it in some type of healthy form. I mean, therapy. Now I feel like more people are getting into like therapy now, as far as like people I've seen in my family. But I feel like in the Spanish community, it used to be looked at like, oh, that's for crazy people, or that's for people that have problems. You know what I mean? So I had that mentality too, until I was like, well, because of that mentality, I'm suffering even more.
That's a fact.
So I need to like get help. And then honestly, therapy was one of the best decisions I made. Therapy, and then finding a good church and a good gym.
Yeah, that's a fact.
And a good girl. There's a couple things, but definitely finding a good therapist will literally change your life.
Man, I'm proud of you, man. Growing up, especially with minorities, bro, we're told like therapy had a negative connotation to it, you know, and we're told, hey, don't talk about what you go through in your home, you know, but like that release is needed. You know what I mean? Just being able to let it all out, speak to someone about what's on your mind, what's in your heart, what you're going through, you know, and I feel like real men cry, you know what I mean? I could count at one point how many times I cried in over a decade or two on one hand. Now I can't wait to cry, bro. You know, I can't wait to release and receive the blessings and happiness. And I'm happy that you're able to walk in your journey and do the same.
Crying honestly brings a lot of peace.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like emotional peace, because you're like just draining all those feelings out, whatever. But yeah, I think mental health is super important. I mean, it kind of sucks that it's taken so long to have the awareness that it has now.
Yeah.
But we need to keep pushing that. We got to let our young, like you say, our young kings and queens, but know that, you know, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to get help.
That's right.
It's okay, because at the end of the day, all you're doing is help. You know, when you go to the doctor, right? Mm-hmm. You have a broken arm. They're not going to judge you like, oh, you're a man. Like, you shouldn't have a broken arm. Like,
they're going to help you fix it.
They're going to help you fix it, right?
That's a fact.
So why do we look at mental health different?
It's the same thing.
Like, actually, I think mental health is even more important. Because just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So yeah, that thank you for sharing about the mental health thing.
Of course.
But about the Richard's Way, I've always seen it on your Instagram bio, and I was always curious, like, who's Richard and like, what is that about? And so I would, you know, if you don't mind like diving into that.
Of course, it's a complete honor. And thank you for asking that question, because it's one of my biggest passions as of today. Richard's Way is actually the second nonprofit that I've been a part of. I started my first one, Bridging the Gap with Change, alongside my wife and one of my childhood friends. Her name is Kamika Henderson, and I've known her since I was 6 years old. And last year, Martin Luther King weekend, her brother was riding a train. Her brother was a crossing guard at a school in New York City, Chelsea. And while riding the train home from work, he was breaking up a fight on the 3 train. I'm just doing what he does best, helping others, you know? And while breaking up the fight on the train, someone pulled out a gun and took his life, right? And Richard is just a father, a husband, a brother, a pillar of his community that impacted and helped so many people on a day-to-day basis. So we wanted to keep his legacy going while also walking in our purpose, providing kids with the resources that they need to grow, you know, to stop gun violence, to give an alternative to the the environment that we grew up in, you know. So Richard's Way is a nonprofit founded by Kamika Henderson, Jakiba Dockery, and a philanthropist like myself that's dedicated to uplifting our community, both children and adults. And just a short period of time, in 1 year, we've fed over 200 people for Thanksgiving. We've had a Halloween event. We had a street name event. And most recently, we just secured a partnership with JP Morgan and Chase. Thank you. In which we're able to use their space and collaborate with them to host events in the neighborhood that I grew up in, Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, you know? So it all comes full circle.
Shout out to Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn.
Bed-Stuy.
So that's huge, man.
I'm grateful.
I know you are humble and stuff, but Chase Bank, like the bank, Chase, right? Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty big deal. But the fact is too, like, that's a financial institution that, you know, the fact that they're open to like offering that to the public as well, that's cool on their part.
Yeah.
But we need someone like you. We need someone like the other founders of that nonprofit to get that going, because if not, like, these things just won't happen. And the same cycles will keep going. Like, it takes a Marcel Brown. It takes someone like me, or you said, what was her name? The other
Kamika Henderson.
It takes people like that to like go and make the change, take the step.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's really cool. And
appreciate you.
And, you know, I'm from New York too. And, you know, I know how crazy New York is. So the fact that you're doing something positive over there. I think that's really cool.
I'm grateful, man. Gandhi says that we have to become the change that we want to see in the world.
Yeah.
And what better way to create the change than by leading the way, you know?
Yeah.
Just speaking of that event, I have 3 daughters, you know, Mercedes, Milan, and Melody. I was able to have my 15-year-old daughter there. You know, I was able to have my 22-year-old younger brother there and so many other people in the community. So I'm walking in my purpose and I'm helping them walk in their purpose at the same time. And Peter, is nothing more fulfilling than that, you know.
How are those events though? Like how are the do you see what's like the people's reaction when they're in those events? Do they feel like that sense of hope?
Yeah. I'm humbled, man, by the impact that we're able to make. You know, it's like everyone wants to become greater. Everyone wants to escape whatever trauma or whatever environment that they are living in, right? But sometimes we don't have the resources to do so. So whenever I'm doing these events, you know, and they're free, always free to the public, it kind of proves like, man, you are walking in your purpose. And I'm humbled for that. You know, I am grateful to have the opportunity to do that and just make an impact, especially in the neighborhood that I grew up in, you know. 10, 15, 20 years ago, you didn't have the tools and the resources that we're providing. So if I can be in this position that I'm in today, imagine that next young king or queen. Imagine where they can be 10, 15, 20 years from now with the resources and tools that we're providing, you know?
I hope that nonprofit goes super, super far, impacts a lot of people, because that's what this podcast is. It's just a way to impact people. So the fact that you're doing that, that's great. I think that God is happy with that type of, you know, behavior and influence that you're trying to have in the community. So I think that's really cool.
Thank you, Peter.
And I know we're talking about music, right? I'm a big music fan as well. So tell me a little bit about you being in the music industry since you were 8.
Yeah.
You said that's 8, like.
Since 8 years old, I started writing my first raps at 8 years old. And thank you for asking, by the way. Of course, inspired by Snoop Dogg and Notorious B.I.G. and Mace and Jay-Z and Fabulous to the Drakes. Always knew that was something that I would like partake in, you know. By the time I was 12 years old, shout out to my cousin Thomas. He had kind of mentored me and put me under his wing, and it led to me being on like the local channels. If you're from New York, you know about BCAT and MNN and Bronx Network, and I'm doing shows at Lincoln Center at 12 years old, you know. And then I stopped for a minute between the ages of 12 and 17, and that passion doesn't go away. And I linked up with my brother, shout out to Maze Marley, and we became like a duo. I only have one tattoo right on my wrist. It's called BDB, Billion Dollar Brooklyn, you know? And I got back into the music industry as a duo. I always consider that time as like my artist development. It helped me to become who Smooth is, you know what I mean? And then by what year was this? 2009, 2008. I went to upstate New York to college, St. Bonaventure University, and that just allowed me to expand my fan base. You know, all of the school shows I was opening up for. We had Chuck D come up there. I opened up for him, and then it led to me headlining their spring weekend concert a year after I left. You know, and from doing my own college tours, from my music being sponsored on being featured on like VH1, to obtaining sponsorships with like Red Bull and Bel Air.
VH1, like the channel before MTV, right?
Yeah,
man. That's big.
Man, I'm grateful. It just allowed me to like express myself. But the difference between now and before, I wanted to be a hot rapper. You know, I wanted to be on the billboards and be on MTV. Now I just want to walk in my purpose. So I use music as my marketing. Music is marketing for who I am as a person and a purpose that I have on this earth, you know? So instead of just creating a hot song and spitting bars because it sounds good or making the hottest club record, I could do those things, but I would have to use it towards a bigger purpose. And that's my goal for it right now. But it's one of my biggest passions and something I look forward to doing in a way that allows me to make an impact.
So that's great, by the way. So I know you took a recess from it. I feel like you got discouraged from just like the way it's very cutthroat and stuff like that. And also I know the type of guy you are. I know the vibe that you have when it comes to like purpose and doing things that doing things the right way.
Yeah.
So if you could talk a little bit about that, about like what steered you off from that path. I think we were talking about this earlier too.
Yeah.
Like what steered you off, and then also what inspired you to want to come back and get involved in music, and then ultimately what the future looks like as far as Marcel's King Smooth's like musical brand and identity.
Yeah.
So it's a 3-part question, but if you could just answer that.
Man, that's a great question.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful to be able to answer it. So yeah, in 2014, a lot of people in New York know me for bringing back like 90s feel, you know? When it comes to the music industry, a lot of people think you have to follow the leader, but the ones who make it big are the ones who are able to set the trends. So when everyone was dancing and making the music that the Souths make, I wanted to bring New York back, you know, and I started a brand called Bring It Back. And it was like a 3-part mixtape series that began in 2010. And between 2010 and 2014, not only did I drop music and release music, remixing like some of the records from the 90s, it helped me to create like a big buzz. But I would wear like the old school gear, like the Sergio Tacchini, the Elises, the Fila. And that's what I would be known for. Is some people who come up.
Not to cut you off, but my dad, Fila was his thing in the 90s. Like I would see like pictures of my dad and he'll be like just dripped out in Fila.
Yeah.
And you know, it's weird. Fila made a comeback. Like they started like getting trendy like a couple years ago too.
So it's funny how you said that. Guess who played the big part in bringing that comeback? This kid named Marcel King Smooth Brown.
Oh, like Fila?
Yeah, Fila, Sergio
Really?
Tacchini, Elises. If you go to New York City, man, I was walking to these clubs, Peter, and doing these shows or walkthroughs or just having fun. And like the security guards used to stop me, like, yo, who are you? Like, where did you get that from? You know, at this time, and this what got me into marketing as well, I didn't understand the value that I was bringing to these different brands. I'm not going to say that I was the lone reason, but, you know, New York is like the fashion mecca, you know, and we helped to set trends. And that was the trend that I was setting from 2010 to now. So like I used to have to go buy dead stock items from Australia and the UK in order to rock it because they wasn't offering it in New York City anymore. But that was my brand. I wanted my music to match my image. And man, it took off. You know, I see people, if I go to New York City now, and Peter, I see people and they'll be like, man, that thing that Tory Lanez is doing, I saw you doing that 10, 15 years ago. These Bronx drill rappers, man, you was screaming, bring it back. And it shows me like the power that I had, right? And the influence that I had. I'm gonna get back to that, you know? But just going back to your question, in addition to making an impact, the music industry is a cutthroat industry, you know? It's every man for itself. People are gonna say, do, and act in a way that's gonna put them at the top and put you at the bottom. I'm a man that leads with peace and love. I move with peace and love. So that didn't really align with my purpose. So from like 2014 to 2021, I took off. And that's when I became like entrepreneur. I was a property manager at a 325 unit condominium in the Upper East Side of Manhattan. And that's what gave me like the skills to be able to not only start my own business, but to be able to spread this knowledge to other people. During that 7-year break, I had took off and my old partners was like, yo, Smooth, come back. But it wasn't to that day that I was going through that problem that I mentioned earlier in the podcast, in which I listened to a song from 2014. I'm like, man, yo, this sounds current, man. Like, this is 7 years ago and you're still dealing with these same problems. And how many other people are dealing with these problems? How many other people can you touch, you know? And I figured like, hey, I can use my influence in music to help people to heal their past, to create an album and to create music. I was only supposed to come back and do one album, you know, but just with my healing journey, Peter, I was able to write 5 albums, you know? So I have a 3-part musical documentary, a mixtape, and then another album that's focused on relationships, but in all projects, it's one goal. And that's motivate, educate, inspire, and to help to heal our people. And that's what answers the question. I want to be able to use music as my marketing. Yes, I run a marketing brand. Yes, I run a nonprofit. Yes, I run an educational business and just try to spread love and light to everybody that I come near. But I feel like music is universal. and it ties the story all together. I'm not pursuing a record deal. I'm pursuing partnership. I'm pursuing endorsement. I'm pursuing a way to be able to have my music amplified. And I've been working on some years to bring this project and to bring the music to the people in a way that's going to impact on a major level. And I can't wait to take those next steps and do so. But that's my purpose, is to heal and uplift.
Awesome. So this is kind of like the creative process, because I've actually tried to do something similar. Like, I mean, all this entire podcast is based off of the issues that I went through, and then I had to develop the arise mindset. What's the arise mindset? The arise mindset is that you can arise over anything that's holding you back.
Yeah.
Whether it's fear, whether it's anxiety, whether it's adversity, obstacles. So we can arise over, even though in the moment it doesn't feel like it, we can arise over it. And then from there, we can arise into the best version of ourselves. And that's the whole reason why this is called the rise. So you take the pain and you turn it into purpose. So it looks like creatively you're doing something similar. So how was the creative process? Like were you journaling in this moment, like to get those feelings out there? Do you like just grab a notebook and a pen and just start writing your feelings? Like how was that creative process? Because maybe somebody is feeling a certain way. Maybe they're not into music, but maybe they need a way to let out their pain. Like, I mean, for me, journaling is huge, meditating, therapy. But what are some things that maybe musically, maybe not musically, that allow you to get those feelings out and turn that pain into purpose? Basically, like the healing journey.
Yeah. So you said it perfect. So I have a marketing brand called Bringing All Ideas Together, right? And I try to assist creatives and business owners with bringing all of their ideas together, but also showing that I'm a walking testimony of that. And I'm happy you asked that question, because a lot of people, they're like, hey, are you a rapper? Are you a marketer? Like, where are you? I'm just a person that's just walking in my purpose. And as far as the music sense goes, when I first started to write music again, I got with my team and we did a healing retreat for Life Don't Lie. No one knew what they were coming into. Peter, I just invited 10 of my closest friends and partners to come out with me. We had a chef, open bar, meditation, things that I do on a day-to-day basis, in addition to a recording studio. And for me, music is the equivalent of someone journaling. So when I'm feeling something, Peter, instead of writing a journal, I write a song. And as I'm writing this music, I'm like, man, this is going to like touch people, you know? So speaking of bringing all ideas together, I wanted to teach and take the next step in my journey with Hip2 Health by bringing kings together for like a studio session and a retreat for 3 days, in which I was able to not only record music, but share my journey with them and have them open up, and also teach them things that I'm doing that helps them with their healing journey. And Peter, it was probably the most fulfilling and electrifying moment of my life. To see 10 kings there, to see 5 of them cry, to open up, you know what I mean, to incorporate the things that I do. So not only recording music, but meditation. You know what I mean? I got that from my wife. I may listen to some Earl Nightingale, you know, to get the inspiration. Success is the progressive realization of an idea. So if you set a goal and you took a step to execute that goal, you are successful, you know? So if Peter said, I want to start a podcast, and this is episode 1 of that podcast, you are successful. You know, and that's the same that goes for the people. So music is basically me healing in real time. And it's so powerful what I've been working on, because I've been documenting this journey in real time. I showed you one of the trailers to what I'm working on, and that's just only one.
By the way, really good. Like the quality, the lyrics, the emotion. Like it really looks like you enjoy what you do, and you're also taking your time.
Yes.
Like you're not just putting something out there just to put it.
Yes.
So I'm excited. I mean, I'm waiting. So whenever you're ready to drop it, you know,
the music gonna start dropping right after this podcast. I promise you that.
Hey. So yeah, no, that's super cool. And you know, all these things I'm learning about you, but like I said, that's not even the main reason why I had you on the podcast. From the time that I've known you, I don't think I've met a more optimistic person. I don't think I've met like I said, like sometimes I'm like, when I first met you, I was like, what's wrong with this guy?
You told me.
I was like, why is he always happy? Like, what's going on? Like, and then I realized, because I thought maybe you were just trying to, in a professional environment, just trying to network or something like that. But I realized that your intentions are pure. I mean, literally, like, you took the whole day today for this. So you just seem like you go the extra mile, you care. And we don't see that nowadays. In a professional environment, people are just a little bit more insensitive. I mean, there's so much division in the world.
That's right.
What is it that gets you to have that mindset? Because we understand that we have to be successful, ambitious, but I feel like you sometimes like take time to smell the flowers. Like you take time to, even with us recording this, like me being a little perfectionist, I was like, you're like, oh no, that's fire, Peter, that's fire. Like, how do you have the patience and the grace and the mindfulness, the presentfulness to not sweat the small stuff, like actually enjoy the process of life instead of looking at life as just a destination? Like, where does that joy come from? Where does that perspective shift come from? Because I'm saying, now I know it's genuine, but like you care so much about others that people are like, whoa, what's this guy up to? But no, and it's genuine, like caring. So where does that come from? Is that something that you, from family, like where does that come from?
Another great question. I would say it's two main factors. Number one, the reason why we're here and what inspired your journey is just mental health and healing. The more that I was able to heal myself, Peter, the more light I got in my body, the more love. I've always been a positive person since I was a kid, but none of us are perfect. And I had my flaws, and through my healing journey, I was able to look myself in the mirror, see what my strengths were, but also see what my weaknesses were, and then create a conscious effort to heal those things and become a person that can spread more love, to spread more light, right? And through my healing journey, it got me back closer to God, right? I have a saying that I go by and I live by is true success and happiness comes from being true to yourself. And when I was younger, 5 years old, when we are kids, and for everyone that's watching, it's so important that we invest into our children's future. Kids, before they are bombarded by life and the pressures of society, they are their true selves, and they understand who they are and what they want to become. And it's when they go through life that gets tainted, and they get further away from themselves. But it's imperative that we speak confidence and invest into what they believe in. When I was 5 years old, I wanted to be three things: an entrepreneur. I didn't know it as entrepreneur. It was a businessman, a rapper, and I became those two things. And the third thing was a pastor, and
whoa, I did not see that coming. A pastor?
A pastor.
I mean, I could see it like the way you are, but I didn't know that was even anywhere near your, because you're so ambitious. And I'm not saying pastors aren't, but tell me a little bit about that. That's actually interesting.
It's exactly. Thank you, Peter. It's exactly what's going on right now. When my Instagram handle is Every Word Is Gospel. The name of one of my mixtapes is called Every Word Is Gospel. But that's just my journey of getting closer to God and bringing people closer to Him as well. And through my healing journey, and then me and my wife just going through different obstacles in life, it brought us closer to God, and it brought me back to my 5-year-old self. And just on my journey, have you ever heard of the TV show The Chosen?
The Chosen, yeah. My parents watch that all the time. I haven't watched it yet, but I've heard nothing but good things.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
The new season just dropped, and it's like breathtaking. But my wife put me onto that show, and just seeing God walk through His journey, it kind of reminded me of the purpose He has for me. And this is how I want to bring it full circle. When He was roaming the streets of Jerusalem and Nazareth, right? During His time, He gave so much knowledge and wisdom for free, so much love for free, so much light for free, Peter. And I feel like if He can do those things, why can't I? Why do I have to charge someone for knowledge that I possess? Why can't I spread peace and love and light? So that kind of like sparked something in me that like no matter what I go through, it's someone else that's going through something tougher. So if I can give some words of wisdom, if I can give a little bit of tender love and care, if I can give a message that can help them to go through and overcome and rise, just like what we're on today, rise above the obstacles that they're facing.
And from somebody, which I'm sure a lot of people watching, being at a lower point, you never know how much your kindness is going to do for the other person. Like when I was in those moments of like, super low, super anxious, I mean, just somebody either just making something a little bit easier for me or complimenting me, or my uncle, shout out to Juan Carlos. He was with me in my healing journey. He used to call me every morning. He's like, hey, how you feeling today? He's like, oh, don't forget to pray. I mean, those things, when you're going through a horrible moment or you're all-time low, that's like these huge, it makes such a difference. Like these huge things. So, your act of kindness, the little extra 2 minutes you take of support, I mean, that can go a long way for somebody else, And
I'm grateful.
And I wish everyone had that mindset, but obviously we have to lead by example and we can't expect others to do it. We just have to be like you said, the change that we want to see in the world.
That's right.
So,
that's right.
Yeah.
You know how many people told me, Peter, like, or thought I was fake, or thought like I wasn't genuine only because of what the world is used to. We're used to giving anger. We're used to giving hatred. We're used to bringing people down, but why can't we uplift? Like you just said, it makes a big difference. Someone can be on the edge, and not know what direction they want to take with their life. But that one conversation could change anything. And if God puts someone in front of me, I know they're in front of me for a reason. And rather than use my tongue to bring down, I'd rather use my tongue to uplift. And trust me, I'm not perfect. What you see today is the representation of my healing journey, and life is a continuous healing journey. So as I heal and as I grow, I want to help others do the same thing. And you are doing that in real time as well. So I thank you.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. I want to talk a little bit about also like God. I know everyone watching may be of a different religious affiliation and stuff like that. I don't hold back. I believe in God, and I think there's definitely a higher power. I have certain examples in my life that I know God exists because there's no other way.
Amen.
Like, I'm not going to go into detail, but there's been things where something on paper says one thing and then I pray about it and then it just magically changes. Not changes overnight, but I'm saying I'll go back to get that same report and things just change. There's been situations where the fact that this is even happening right now, like when 2 years ago I was having like panic attacks.
Wow.
You know what I mean? I couldn't even sit. I couldn't even sit.
Wow.
Like, so the fact that this is even happening, the fact that I'm able to meet people like you, it's a blessing. So I know God is real in my life with certain examples. What are some examples that you've seen in your life that you can say, there's no other explanation? Like, this is proof that God is real. What are some examples that you've seen in your life? Yeah. And I know there's one in particular. So if you want to go and talk about that one, but whatever example that you want to share.
Man, it's so crazy how it comes full circle, and you are powerful, man, and you are a reflection of God's light and God's love and how you continue to rise. So I want to give you your flowers once again. And I brought it up, and thank you. I brought it up in the beginning of this episode, and in 2019, Peter, I got sick out of nowhere, man. When I first went to the doctor, they say I had a sinus infection. Didn't get better. Went back a few weeks later. They said I had acute sinusitis, did some tests, called me back in 24 hours. I knew something was wrong. They said I had something called C. diff colitis, which was inflammation of my colon. I had no good bacteria in my body. I lost about 20 to 30 pounds, couldn't eat, couldn't keep anything down, kind of removed me from work and kind of led to my spiritual awakening, right? And during that time, just from praying and just taking the next steps in my journey, Peter, I met with every type of specialist, did a colonoscopy, every kind of specialist that you can meet with to find out what was going on. No one can tell me what was causing my sickness, Peter. And within 6 months, I was healed. No explanation, no cause, no reason to what caused me to get sick and what caused me to get better. Of course, with the help of my wife, changing my diet, more intake of fruits and vegetables, and just a healthier lifestyle. But only God can make that happen. You know, only God can take you from a place of suffering to success, from darkness to light, you know, from pain to purpose. And that's what inspired everything that I'm doing right now. So 5 years ago, Peter, there wasn't a marketing brand or educational brand or me doing music. No, it was by him showing me that I have you here for a reason. Now let me help other people understand that they're here for a reason, that they matter, that they are worthy, that they are deserving, that they have a purpose to their lives. And that's so many other stories. Peter's times that I'd had $0 to spend and I would get a $5,000 check. You know what I mean? Out of nowhere. That's God. You know what I mean? That he would continue to provide in ways that you didn't know how you were going to provide for, from getting you from a place of pain to purpose. And it's only him that could do it, you know? And we can go and share stories for hours on how he does it, but that just shows me that there's a higher power, you know? And I feel like religion is based on perspective, but it's all about who created us, you know
all
what I
these
mean?
is the same place.
Yeah, 100%. Like,
all comes back to God.
yeah, it all comes back to him, you know? So no matter what religion someone practices, we all know that there is a God, you know? And God is good. I give all glory to him.
Amen. Amen. And that's one of the things that I'm always working towards, to improve my spiritual life. So that is always the foundation. That's kind of like the tree, like the foundation of the tree. And then there's these other branches, right? Like there's with the mental health stuff, you know, maybe meditation, maybe therapy. But if I'm being honest, that part it's so weird because it's so hard to explain, because, you know, it's not like you can say like, oh, this happened, then this happened, because it's not logical. It's spiritual. It's literally like you had fear, but now you're filled with faith. Like there's one Bible verse that I forgot what it was specifically, but it talks about he will fill you with his peace that surpasses all understanding. And I always go back to that because I'm like, how can I be anxious? How can I be like taking time off of work because I'm like having all this anxiety and these panic attacks? How can I be who I am now? Like I'm one of the calmest people I know. You know, I mean, most of the time, but it's like a night and day difference. And I'm like, I understand the therapy helped, the meditation helped, but there's something inside of me that switched.
Yeah. So would you say it was God that has played the biggest role in you rising above the obstacles you faced with anxiety?
Yes. Probably like 70%.
Wow.
70%. And then also, I mean, there's just a lot of things that have happened in my journey. I mean, literally, I don't really believe in like guardian angels or anything like that, but I went to a anxiety center in Tampa because my anxiety was getting to the point where it was really interfering with my day-to-day life. And, you know, they introduce you to like your therapist who's going to be working with you. I was staying at like an Airbnb out there, which was kind of cool. It's like, you know, kind of, I just needed like to get away from everything and focus on my mental health. But like little things like, you know, she had a tattoo that had like 444, which is like the angel number. And I never believed in that, but she literally was an angel. Like she literally made me feel so much comfort that I didn't feel. So for me, like, it's just crazy. Like to be in that situation, to go to where I am now, God is definitely most of that. And then you got the other things, you know, I call them like the toppings, you know, God is the ice cream. And then everything else is the toppings. That's, you know, therapy is the toppings, exercise, sleep, things that are like that. But when we die, like what goes with us is the spirit. So if we want to really heal and get like real healing, it starts from within, from the spirit.
Yeah.
So
that's right. That's powerful, man. And I appreciate you sharing your testimony. Man, I was listening to Cameron and Mace's podcast, It Is What It Is. And Mace was saying how we have so many different essentials in life, but you need food, you need shelter, you need clothing, you know, but the most important piece is God, you know, without him, nothing is possible. What's that? Matthew 19, What's that? Matthew 19.
I
With
don't
God,
know.
all things are possible. That's my wife's favorite.
I'm not gonna say anything
1926.
because if I get it wrong, I'm gonna embarrass myself. But nah, I don't.
Matthew 19:26.
Oh, with all things God are.
With God, all things are possible.
Yeah, in Spanish, it's todo lo puedo con Cristo que me fortalece. Oh no, I think that's Philippians 4:13. But basically, it's like I could do anything with God.
That's facts.
Yeah.
That's facts. That's facts. I want to tell you something. So, Peter, you are diving into an area which more people just pay attention to. You said that you went to the center in Tampa, and the therapist that you met with, she had an angel number, and it was 444. Sometimes I was talking about life don't lie. When you heal your past and you stay present, when you stay present, you're going to see everything that you need. That's going to allow you to elevate your future. And you do that, Peter. Us being here today, you being able to connect the dots allows you to know that God is always present. And I just wanted to highlight you saying that because that's very important,
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. And yeah, it just shows that, if you're watching out there and you're going through a tough time, I mean, I've been there. Marcel has been there. A lot of people have been there. And this is why I wanted to do the podcast, because when I was in those low moments, I needed an uplifting word. And I just want you to know that there's light at the end of the tunnel. And something you notice that the most beautiful things always come from like the ugliest things. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of, like, for example, who knows if I would have even had the motivation to do this if I didn't go through that.
Exactly.
Who knows if maybe you would have kept being the same Marcel if you didn't have those things. You know what I mean? So I think that God throws stuff our way that is like character development as well. But like, you got to rise over it.
Yeah, that's right. And that's what we're here today.
Yeah.
To let everyone know that you can rise above any obstacle that you're going through things. You go through things so that you can grow through things,
Yeah. Yep.
Things don't happen to us, they happen for us. And sometimes during our times of adversity, we don't understand why we're going through this. Why do I have to experience this death? Why do I have to experience this job loss? Why do I have this broken heart? Until 5 months, 1 year, 5 years later, you're like, man, that was the biggest turning point in my life. And it helped me to get here today. And we just got to enjoy the journey, embrace the journey, and know that every lesson leads to a blessing, So, Peter, we're talking about mental health and how your mental health journey inspired the podcast and inspired you to rise above those obstacles that you were facing. May is Mental Health Awareness Month.
And my birthday.
Hey, happy early birthday, bro.
Thank you.
So that is aligned and that is divine. And I think that's part of your
May 4th, too.
Wow. 4 is a powerful number. That 444 that you saw, it's all aligned, And that brings even more meaning to my question. Through you rising above the obstacles that you faced, 2-part question, what did you do? What helped you to rise above? And what advice can you give to someone that's watching that can assist them with overcoming any obstacles that they are facing?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think with me, the first thing is just being honest. I think just being honest, saying, hey, you know what? Like, this is where I'm at, and being humble enough to accept that, okay, I'm in a place where I need to improve, or I'm not feeling well, or I need to get some type of help. I think being in that place is very vulnerable. You cannot be in that place with pride. But if you drop that pride and you stop working out of the ego and you are humble enough, then you can actually let go and grow and get to the right resources. So for me, that was the first thing, just opening up and being honest with myself. Like, hey, you know what? I'm not feeling good. I'm going to go get help for this. I think that was the first thing. The second thing was, believe it or not, in any type of like journey, whether it's a business, whether you're trying to improve something, it's always going to take a level of discipline. And for me, when I was going through this, this kind of mental health roadblock, I used to put my alarm every day for 10 minutes to meditate. And I did that like non-negotiable, meditating, deep breathing, focusing on my breath. I even started making like a chamomile tea at night. I would go to my therapy appointments every week. So, and that's just anything in life. You're going to need discipline, and you're going to need things that are going to help. So I think that really helped. Therapy was amazing. But I think even before that, you got to be honest with yourself. You got to be like, hey, listen, like, I'm not okay. And that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not okay. That's okay. Let me go get help. Let me go improve. And it's one of the best things you can do. So that's number one. Number two is to remain disciplined with the things, change your habits. For me, journaling was amazing because it's like an emotional and a brain dump. So that was huge. Being open to therapy is helpful too, because it's kind of a mix of, you know, journaling, like letting those feelings out, but you're also getting a professional perspective. I mean, I've gotten so many insights from my therapist, not just when it comes to, you know, anxiety and things like that, but also relationships. Like, oh, well, maybe I said something to my partner in a way where I wasn't seeing how it affected them. Show certain areas where you can be more empathetic. So for me personally, like, I think those are the big two for me. Honesty, my healthy habits. I had a list of healthy habits, which in those, the big three are meditation, prayer, sleep, and therapy. So,
Man,
yeah.
that's amazing. And would you recommend those things to someone that's watching to overcome their journey?
Hands down. With meditation, I have the Headspace app, and you pay like a yearly thing. But honestly, they have a free ones that you can do that are very basic. But you can just keep doing the free ones over over and over. Deep breathing is free. You can literally, whether you're stressed at work, overwhelmed, your partner is getting you angry, you don't know the power of 10 deep breaths. Like 10 deep breaths can save your life. Like you can literally want to punch someone in the face, and then you take 10 deep breaths and you're looking at things from a whole nother perspective. So deep breathing is free. Therapy, there's a lot of resources. And then even if you're not ready for therapy, which I don't think there's such thing, but talk to someone you confide in. You know, the worst thing you can do is keep things to yourself.
That's a fact.
That's the worst thing you can do.
Of course. And what motivated you to not keep things to yourself? What was that turning point that said, hey, I have to be honest with myself? Like, what was that moment that sparked your healing journey?
Yeah, I think I realized that it was affecting my life in different areas, and it was affecting the relationships I have. It was affecting the relationships with my parents. It was affecting my well-being, my job. And I think if that's happening to you and you see that, then that's an indication where, okay, like you got to drop the ego and you got to go get some help. So it was that. It was also like, it's life, man. And there's nothing more important than quality of life, nothing more important than peace. And if you don't have peace, you don't have anything.
That's right.
If you don't have peace, if you don't have health, you don't have anything. Like, what's the point of $1 million if you have no peace? Like, you can't sit down for 5 minutes and enjoy time in silence with yourself.
That's a fact.
For me, that's real wealth. Real wealth is like, the podcast is over, you leave, I'm in this room by myself, and I feel good with myself. You know, so many times we're like, oh, like trying to be in everything. We're trying to be at the club. We're trying to be at every family function. We're trying to be at every event. But when you know that you have real wealth when you can like just sit by yourself in silence and you're happy with who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know it took a lot of discipline and commitment to get happy within yourself, and life is a continuous healing journey. What would you tell your younger self who wasn't there? Your 15-year-old self, your 21-year-old self that may have been facing obstacles. What advice would you give him now?
That's a good question. 15-year-old Peter, I mean, yeah, I would tell him to open up. You know, I saw my parents as like the enemy, you know, because I always thought I knew everything. I thought they were just trying to like mess things up. And I had a lot of pressure because I played high school baseball.
That's what's up.
I had the worst high school coach, by the way. I'm just going to say that here. He literally, like, I had performance anxiety in high school. As far as I was a really good baseball player, but the way the coaches were, it was a new school too. All those that's the first time I felt anxiety in high school, and I didn't know how to express it, so I just reserved it. And then I think that was a point in my life where I changed, and my parents just thought, oh, he's just going in his teenage years. But in reality, sometimes you don't know how to handle things and you just keep it to yourself. And like I said, that's the worst thing you can do, because it's like there's something wrong, and instead of fixing it, instead of opening up about it, you're holding it to yourself. And honestly, it's not I would tell myself it's not that big of a deal. Like, if something's bothering you, like, talk about it.
Yeah.
It's not that, like, it's a big deal in your mind, but like, what, we're humans, we go through stuff.
100%. And you just said something that's very important, and you said to be you. You know what I mean? To open up more, you know? I think that's so important. You know, me and Peter can share the same ideologies or share the similar perspectives on certain topics, but the truth is, Peter is uniquely himself. Marcel is uniquely himself. And it's important for everyone to be themselves. Not everyone is going to have the long hair. No, everyone is going to have the deep, powerful voice. No, everyone is not going to have the jump shot that's going to make it into the league. But you have something. You are important, you know, and it takes us to be ourselves to see how important we can be in this world, you know. So I commend you for giving that advice to younger Peter. But by you giving that advice to younger Peter, it's someone else that's looking at you right now and saying, hey, thank you. I needed that. And I think that's the whole goal of your podcast. And that's my next question. What do you want to accomplish with Arise? Like, what is your mission and what is your vision for the pod?
That's a great question. So it's all about the Arise mindset. There's 2 missions with the Arise podcast. I'm not doing this for money. I'm actually in debt right now with all the equipment and stuff like that. So I'm not doing this for money. I'm doing this for impact. The Arise mindset is for my younger self. And if I could help somebody who's in my situation, that's the whole purpose. So what Arise for me stands for is to arise into the best version of yourself. And the second definition is to arise over anything that's holding you back. For me, it was fear, it was anxiety, it was depression. It was these things that were holding me back. But I'm here, I rose over it. And if I could do it, why can't you?
That's a fact. That's a fact.
It's possible.
Yeah.
It's very possible. And life is short. And I think we got to live courageous. I mean, in the Word of God, it says, I don't know which one it was, what verse, but it's something that says, be strong and courageous. Fear not, for I am with you. My favorite Bible verse is that I did not give you a spirit of fear, but I gave you a spirit of power, love, and sound mind. So I don't live in fear anymore.
Yeah.
And guess what? My life is 10 times better.
That's right.
And if somebody can make the same switch I made, I know their life is going to get better. And that's the mission. I want somebody on their way home from work to be having everything go wrong in their life. And to tune in and have a little bit of hope.
That's right.
That takes them into the next day, and then that momentum builds. So I'm here for impact. That's the whole point. I want to help people rise into the best version of themselves and arise over all the bullshit that holds them back.
Yeah, man. I commend you, man. And I'm grateful for you taking the initiative to start this pod and have me on here as well. Because
Thank you for coming.
Of course, that impact is being felt already. Prior to us filming, we were talking about fear and different definitions of fear. And one of my favorite is it's false expectations appearing as reality, you know? So fear is basically us creating something in our mind that has not happened yet and creating those outcomes that are not true, you know? But just like you said, when you are able to block out the noise and block out those negative voices that are talking to you, you're able to receive everything that's on the other side of that success, that happiness, that new promotion. You know what I mean? But it starts with self, you know? And
there's a saying that says everything you've ever wanted is on the other side of fear.
That's a fact.
Like this whole thing, the podcast, I've been wanting to do it for a while.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know if it was procrastination or fear, but definitely I think fear played a small role. Like, oh, I don't know what people are going to think. Oh, I don't know, like, if I have the right equipment. But sometimes you gotta be like, screw that. I'm gonna rise over all that, and I'm gonna make it happen.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Because somebody needs to hear this. So I need to bring value to the world while I'm here. I mean, I don't know if obviously with the current events of my country, Dominican Republic, we lost one of the all-time legends, and he was just performing at a regular nightclub, and the roof fell.
Yeah,
and he didn't know that was his last time.
Yes.
So we don't know when's our last time.
That's a fact.
Rest in peace, Ruby Perez. But we don't know when it's our last time. So every day we need to squeeze the lemons and make lemonade.
That's a fact. Let them know, Peter.
Yeah, and life is short, and let's just enjoy it while we're here, and let's arise.
Yeah, and we will, and I just appreciate the opportunity to not only be able to share this wisdom with the public, but to be able to receive it. At the same time, we need more of this, more kings that's sticking together to walk in their purpose, but supporting each other while doing so, and I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful to be able to experience your light and be a part of something big, For all those that's watching, use Peter as an example, as a testimony that you can rise above anything that you are facing. Not only am I looking forward to seeing the final output of this episode, but many episodes to come. You want to talk about more that's on the way, Peter?
Well, we gotta have you back. We gotta have you back. But we're gonna talk a lot about mental health. I'm actually gonna have like professionals, therapists. I would love to even maybe have a pastor come on, entrepreneurs, CEOs, creatives like you. I mean, there's no limit. I mean, what I really want for this podcast is to be able to help people and provide an impact. So yeah, that's what's coming. So
yeah, man, I'm excited. I'm excited.
I like to finish the podcast with this question, 2 questions. Well, actually I have another question, but
please.
Did you know what the Arise mission was?
So that's part of the reason why I asked, so Arise speaks for itself. But as we were talking about earlier, bro, that's what's on the surface. What inspired that? You know what I mean? What made you want to say, I want to arise, or I want to help people arise? And I think those are the questions that you just answered. I didn't know, to be honest. I knew it was a story behind it, and you told me in passing, like, hey, Marcel, there's a lot behind who I am, and not everyone is able to be vulnerable, Peter, to open up about the thing that caused them pain, but also inspired the purpose. And that's why I'm so grateful to be here today, and I feel like we all can relate to what Arise means. We all can relate to what your story is, because your story is my story. My story is someone else's story. We're all living and going through the same things at the same time. And it just shows that we're not alone,
No, I appreciate that. And I appreciate you coming and being here. This is my first official guest. So
I'm grateful.
And definitely returning. We're definitely going to have more as Marcel continues to elevate his life and improve things that he's working on and release projects. Like, for example, once that documentary and the project is released, you got to come on right away.
I'll be here, man.
Right away. And we got to have a launch party. And
hey, we got to do that for Arise at the same time too, bro.
We still got an Arise launch party on the way.
For sure.
But the last 2 questions I want to end every episode is, out of all the things you've arised over, what has been the biggest thing you've had to arise over, and how have you arisen into the best version of yourself?
Ooh, that is phenomenal. That's a phenomenal question, bro. It kind of leads to what I'm going through right now. Moving to Florida has been, a lot of people don't know, one of the biggest obstacles my family and I have faced. We used to vacation down here a few times a year and love the atmosphere, love the air, love the energy. But moving to a place is totally different. And Peter, it's just me, my wife, and 2 of my daughters that moved down here. No friends, no family, no resources, just passion to take the next steps in our purpose. And by leaving New York City, I left everything behind. I left family behind. I love finances behind a lot of my businesses and my inventory, and a lot of things are still in New York. My foundation is in New York, but I knew that God wanted me to take this step. If I didn't take this step, I wouldn't be talking to you today. And Peter, I experienced so many lows during this period of isolation, of not feeling that you belong, of not having that comfort of being who you feel that you are, many lonely nights, many times of just having to figure out. Before I made $1 down here, I took 8 months to kind of figure out the lay of the land, when you seeing that savings dwindle down, and you see that baby need new shoes, and you seeing that the rent needs to be paid, it can get scary. But as you said, when you're moving with purpose, when you're moving with that purpose, you're going to receive everything that God has for you, and this is a part of my life in which not only I moved down here to take the next steps in my purpose, but it gave me the tools to take the next steps in my purpose. I began to hide myself, Peter, because of what success can bring, because of what misunderstanding can bring. And it made me not want to share these gifts. But when you don't share these gifts, God takes them away, Peter. And my journey of not sharing my gifts and making this big relocation to Florida was probably one of the biggest obstacles that I had to go through, but it taught me, it built up my character, and allowed me to test myself and stand on the principles that I stand on. You know what I mean? Growing from where I grew up, you see nothing but drug dealers and basketball players. And I told myself, Marcel, no matter how hard it gets, you're not going to go into your past or become a product of your old environment. You're going to stand it through. You know what I mean? And I'm here, so I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, that definitely does. And yeah, no, I just want to let you know that I appreciate your story. I feel like your story is there's so many layers that I feel like we can still keep feeling for hours. But no, I want to just thank you for coming on. Super grateful for you taking out your day to do this. And I hope that I see you arise as well, because it's not just my mission, it's a mission for me and other people. So I want you to rise into the best Marcel Brown, because I feel like you have a lot to give to the world.
I'm grateful. Thank you for seeing me, man. Thank you for understanding me and giving me a platform to not only share my story, but help others with rising as well. Just always remember, every person that you meet, every place that you at, every encounter that you have is all a part of our divine purpose, and me being here with you today is a big part of my purpose. And I'm grateful to be able to share our stories and help other people with taking the next steps in their journey as well.
Any final words first, I want to let you guys know, if you enjoyed the content, please share, like, and subscribe. Like I said, this is for you guys. Every episode, let me know what you guys think, what you guys want to hear. I do these episodes for you guys and to make an impact in the world and to help us arise together. But yeah, Marcel, I appreciate your time. Any final words for everyone watching out there or listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts?
I'm grateful. Yes, true success and happiness comes from being true to yourself. If you can remember that, and just no matter what country you live in, what environment you grew up at, what your circumstances are, that you can rise above it. You know what I mean? But it takes you being true to yourself. Not what mommy and daddy thinks, with all due respect. Not what your best friend thinks. Not what your teacher thinks, but what you feel. If you follow that gut feeling in your heart and your intuition, you make that plan, and you be true to yourself during that time, you will receive success and happiness. And I'm a true testimony of that. And you could become a true testimony of that as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much again for your time, Marcel. You guys take care. God bless. And don't forget to arise.